What you doing?
Oh, today I plan to paint with Blender.
Okay. I'll be using this to watch your videos.
Well, hello everybody, this is Blender Pretender, playing with Blender once again, posting it online because it's fun, and as always, using my Blender powers for good. Let's see, today is Sunday, February the 28th, and today I plan to play with Blender while I paint. I paint stuff, paint things with Blender. So now Blender has the options or the capacity of doing texture painting, and not just texture painting, also in the, if you go to let's say for example the renderings tab, if you were to have an image, if I were to create a new image, let's say just a sample image, you can always go into the paint options here, and then you can paint, of course, and gives you all the tools here and all that stuff. So what I've done to take advantage of that is I've created myself a template that I've already saved up so I can do the painting. And so what I do is I have a plane that has basically a bunch of textures as layers that I use to do this kind of painting, and I use Blender just because I'm Blender Pretender, and because it's you know, I've used the other software programs, and the other software programs are way more efficient, such as Krita and even GIMP and so on. But Blender, and I've said it before, I have no examples really to show, but I use it for myself, is that it gives you the option of having grease pencil in 3D. So I went to the trouble of having this, and today though I plan to do a simple landscape painting. Let me show this right here just so that it can be seen. I have an old photo here of Yosemite. It's already faded, but it's a landscape, and I like landscapes. The reason I decided to do this is I go onto the social medias, and sometimes I see some people, artists, posting some of the landscapes. I like landscape paintings, particularly I like the Bob Ross style paintings. A few years back, I learned how to, I bought some of the Bob Ross books and courses, CDs, and so on. And this is a few years back, and I learned how to paint in the Bob Ross style. The thing about it, though, is that the computer, you know, gives us all these options to get away from that. And so why not take advantage of it? But it's really still admirable. For me, it's really admirable. I was watching Bob Ross on Netflix the other day, and how he manages to make a painting really with make a painting within half an hour. Obviously, he rehearsed it or did some work beforehand just to try to, you know, set everything up, obviously, but in half an hour he can get a full finished painting. And so we'll see how long it takes me to do this kind of painting with Blender. And let me show it again, my camera. So basically something, a landscape to resemble that in Blender. And hopefully maybe my setup is a little bit more geared towards that. Now I've been using this setup with Blender 2.83. I was looking right now at some of the settings here, and as always, I always have to get familiar with some of the way I have the files set up. But hopefully I don't go too much on tangents on that. So what it is, it's a plane that acts as a canvas on which I paint. And so as always, to start with a landscape painting, I'm going to use the full square canvas. The ratio here is not square. I can always just try to guess at it, and that's what I was looking at right now as I was talking, is that I can take the X, not the X, rather, the Y, and maybe I should be looking through the camera, and then bring it down. this is what's going to render or print once I'm done. And all I gotta do is just look at that and get an eyeball ratio, right? Maybe zoom it back down and then just overlay the image there. It still needs a little more. And so just bring it down more. Eyeball right there. Boop. That's good. It's an odd dimension, obviously, but I'm going to see, just follow what I'm looking here at the side for reference. Okay, so like all Bob Ross paintings, they start off with a primed canvas in which then you just put the sky in there. So a note then also is that Blender is not, at least by the dimensions that I'm working with right now, it's not very efficient at painting. So I just have to live with it and work with it. So be it, right? It's not going to be like the other softwares where you can get a big brush and then just paint really, really hard, really, really fast. So just bear with that. That's what it is. So I'm going to desaturate it a little bit, put it into maybe a mix here. I'm going to just the blue here for the sky. It looks like it's a blue sky. It has no clouds, but I'm going to add some clouds. Why not? It's a painting. You can do whatever you want. That's what Ross used to say. And so to start off, my very first layer is gray. I learned that by just doing experimentation. I have a few other videos where I do some paintings, and I learned that you really can't work with a white background, not on a computer. So there you go. You can hear my computer start humming already. So there it is. I didn't do pressure sensitivity on the strength, but so be it. Now it's all blue, and as you can tell, I just did some strokes going this way. There's going to be some places where there might be still somewhat transparent and you can still see the gray. It doesn't matter. It looks fine to me now. So to start off in any painting, I think digitally for me would be with a 50% just background layer. All right, so to start off, there's that. Then to add clouds, let's say for example, if I wanted to add the idea of clouds. Now I'm going to use the annotations tool here. Let me go into the object mode and just hidden D. I'm going to try to set up the more or less the composition, let's say. So for example, that's half tone there in the background and it does something like that. Probably blue is not the best color for the annotation tool, right? But it does something like this. And I have no idea what happens over here beyond the trees, but I'm going to guess that maybe it goes like this. And in the background, you probably have some mountains there that go down like that. And then the halftone goes like this. And so what is going to happen right around here is where we have a creek. And that creek seems to snake around like this. Has a little bit of, then the soil here has a little bit of that works its way back over this way. The soil does. I mean the river bank, little creek bank there, and so you can see the creek goes back that direction, and rather you can see that it does something like that. And so obviously you have then, so that's the banks, and then it seems to have some rocks. So here and here, very small, but I feel like I might add some more. They'll give interest, some interesting things there. And then you have obviously the bushes that are around here. And so right here, right below the mountain, you have these trees that go off in the background, right? And then now you start seeing some of the bushes that come up here, and then you start seeing some of the trees that come out here. And so these trees are bushy all the way over here, bushy, bushy, and then you get these big pines, right? And go over here with some more bushes right in here in the foreground. So it's a very like a picture perfect Bob Ross kind of thing, right? And you see the riverbank here, and likewise you get the trees over here. So that's a nice picture there to illustrate some of like what Bob Ross used to do, is just basically shove a big tree after you thought he was. As a viewer, I used to watch and I used to think, I used to think that the drawing was picture perfect, and he's almost to the point of completion, and then boom, he has a tree right in front of everything. So okay, so we already know where we're going. I'm aiming for something that's going to look like that. Excuse me. Maybe this is a little exaggerated here, but okay. So let me turn the annotations off here. Annotations are off now. So, well, I turned them off, but I was going to use them as a guide. All right, so the next thing to do is go back to the canvas object that I have here, and I'm going to jump up a few layers. Basically, I put in 30 image textures that I created as layers, and I'm going to give myself some room to work that sky more if I want to, which I do want to, but before that, I want to add the mountain. Let's say the mountain here. To do that, what I'm going to do is go into the, I use spacebar, go into the, let me turn that on, on the left side. There, I don't think it's in the way of anything right there, because I'm not going to have a lot, well, texture painting that redo, the redo, I'm going to stick on tools here. The redo function is not going to be coming up so much. All right, so starting with number 5 here, I'm going to use the spacebar because that's just how my settings are done, are set up for Blender, and I'm going to go into the mask. So the mask already has a mask object here that is because the file is already prepped, preset. I'm going to go into just the straight out super saturated red for the color of the mask. And this is one of the things that I haven't seen in the previous versions of Blender. Now it seems to work, is that while I am in the rendered view here, I can now mask things. So I have 2 brushes. It just depends on the fall off of the brush here, but I called it hard, and just has to do with the fall off being a constant fall off. That's all. So now I'm going to start masking it and just going down like that. And that way. And then work that way, like that. So one thing about half dome there is that it looks kind of smooth. That's why they call it, it's like half of a dome, right? That's why they call it that. And so what I'm going to do here is, my computer might be slowing down just a bit because of what I'm doing, but here, hopefully not the recording. It should be on the separate card, but the actual speed at which the image is refreshed here is based on the graphic card, and so it slows down while I'm doing this, at least drawing with a big brush. All right, so I'm going to mask it off. I'm going to go further, even all the way to the top. So I have an invert, the sky on top and the mountain on the bottom. So the cool thing that I was saying is that before you couldn't see that. So 283 is where I was 283, 281 had a little bit of glitches, so I never really used it for painting, but I used to use 283 still. And so now I'm using 292. This is 292, by the way. You might have seen the splash screen at the beginning. I'm doing this also because I want to test it and make sure that it's going to work, and I don't want to have to go back to 283 anymore. Now that 292, the official version, is out as of, what was it, Thursday? I can't remember, a few days back. Maybe even the beginning of the week. I didn't pay attention really. All right, so now what I was saying is that while you're in the draw mode, now I'm going to turn that. What I had created previously in my previous file that was serving as a template, I had created a mask object that was parented, that was showing me the mask because Blender was not showing the mask when you were in render mode and doing texture paint. That has been fixed, and now when you are using the stencil layer, you see the mask. The only thing that I would prefer is that maybe there is an option here for the alpha. That's just as a visual. So right now what it's doing is doing probably the same thing that I did here. Is I just created, the masks are usually black or white, right? It's a black image, and the white represents yes, mask this area. Black, no, mask, do not mask this area. So if we were to actually go and look at the mask image here, type in here mask. You see the image. You see that I made a little mistake right there. I didn't even get that. If I were to go into the painter, now I see it. I got kind of messed up with the blue here. So if I were to go back into the masking, I can get that. So I'm going to save all images while I'm at it, and Control Save. Save the file because I'm risking a crash. I haven't pushed the program to do the stuff that I'm doing right now. It's all being recorded live. This is not being broadcast live. It's being just recorded live. I want to do it real time. So back to the drawing board. If I were to keep that same brush, let's say, this is just the smooth brush, the standard, blender brush that comes in Texture Draw. I just called it Draw Soft, renamed it. But if I were to go and then, so I'm looking at maybe perhaps, I'm going to go into this, maybe not so much into this green part, but yeah, just desaturate it some. Come over here almost to the grain, desaturate it. So this is going to be the color of the mountain, the base color, but I really want it to be somewhat of the dark color that's underneath. So I'm going to shoot for that one. I'm just looking at the photo off to the side, and so you just have to trust me. So right now the mask is acting as the yeah, it's doing what it's doing. It's the mask, right? It's a mask. The Mask of Zorro. old movie now, right? So right now I'm just drawing over the sky and bringing it down. And so since I already got that out of the way, I'm only going to bring the annotations back up when I do the river. So basically just start. Since I have the pressure sensitivity, it's kind of working. And it's letting some of the blue, obviously, from behind the mountain show, which is fine. We're going to address that here in a minute. All right. So in this picture, the sun is very clearly to the right side. Not completely, not in a very dramatic angle. So it's really to the right side and from the very top. But there's a face of this half dome that's in darkness. So that's why I'm going over more and more here. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Control Copy on that. Just hovering over the color, going Control C, copies the color. Now I'm going to go to this one here and then Control V. Now there, what I'm going to do, so this is a color. I can always start adding, and I think it's somewhere in here, a color palette if I want to. Create a new one, right? And just start adding color palettes. So there it is in the color palette down here. If I need to go back to it. So that I don't have to do Control Copy, but usually I don't. I'll just wing it. All right. So what this is my attempt at trying to replicate the texture, I was going to call it caking or the crumbling when you see the paintings that are being done. It really relies on the texture of the canvas and the texture of the paint that has been laid before it to grab some paint and some not when Bob Ross paints mountains with his palette knife. So I call it palette knife, but it's not doing anything like that. It's just a texture that's running in Blender. So I'm going to pretend, right, that it goes this way. I pretend and then see where it goes and then just work with it. So what I want to do is I want to bring up the color on this one then, or the lightness. One of the cool things that I just found out, for example, while moving around, when you play with this color palette here, right, and you move some stuff, I learned obviously that when you want to darken things, you have to kind of work on a diagonal. You have to go in a diagonal to darken things and to lighten things, because if you just go up and down, it doesn't really work. It doesn't come across well. It has to go in a diagonal. And so I just learned that the hard way, just trying to deal with color here. And what I noticed, and I'm going to show this right here, I think, is that when you take the axis coming down here, it's called the value, I believe. Is it the value? Okay. but the saturation is not working here. Now, I saw it earlier somewhere else while using 292, and I'm trying to think where I was using it. I'd have to go on a tangent just to find it. That it was actually scrolling up and down in a curve that looked to me like it was almost like a, like a either a quadratic or a exponential curve or whatever. But it was actually working in this direction. All of that to say, going back to this, is that what I want to do is lighten it. So I'm going to go in the diagonal in that direction, just eyeballing it. Diagonal in that direction, and then just going to see what it does. I'm going to jump one layer up, and now I'm going to start going on the light side, and then just start painting down. This is dependent. I took all the brushes and I made them not view dependent so that they don't change, scale up and down with the view. So I just zoomed in a little bit just to make sure that the brush stays a little bit bigger. And now I'm just going to look at my picture and try to replicate some of the stuff that I see there. Now I'm going to go even lighter. There. And I noticed that it's got maybe bring it darker. So there's no palette really that I'm working on. I'm just going lighter and darker. So it's got like these vertical cliffs that go up and down, right? Stuff like that. There, and then maybe bring this one a little darker. And bring that in like that. Right, there we go. Put some in between here just to make it work. This is going to be seen viewed at a distance, of course, so consider always just zooming out to see how it's working. All right, that looks good to me right there. What I'm going to do while I have this right now is I'm going to jump back to the previous layer, and I'm going to change that to multiply. It's going to be using the same color, but what I'm doing is having the same brush. I did a brush stroke here without wanting to, but Control Z, bring it down in strength. And what I'm doing is for the underlying, the underlying layer, I'm just adding more shadows as just a multiply layer. And now I'm going to change it and go overlay, go into very, very bright overlay. White, I mean. I'm still in the underlying layer. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding more texture there to the mountain. I'm going to add to this top side here, something like that, and then go back to the front layer there and go back to the multiply. Use that color right there. Just increase the texture there a little bit. It's a very definite, when you look at the picture, it's a very definite distinction between, it's like a cliff right there, right? So you can see that, and you want to show that. And, okay. So that looks good. Now, go back to the overlay. I'm still in this very top layer here. Now I'm going to, using the overlay there, change some of these. So it should be very sporadically hitting some of those. And there. Maybe a little too much. So the overlay is not really painting new strokes, it's just very sporadically adding more. I'm using Control F and just to change that a little bit. The angle, I mean Control F to change the angle, and Shift F to do the strength. Those can be moved up here, of course, except for the angle. The angle is somewhere in here. Now go back to the other one, the previous the underlying layer. And there. So that's about as much emphasis as I want to do on that. I'm going to go Q and then turn that off so that I can see it for what it's supposed to look like. I'm not going to go further with it. I could, but now it gives me the idea that it's basically a cliff. And it's far off in the distance, so I don't have to mess with it too much. And now I'm going to go into layer 7, make sure I'm in the mix, and I'm going to go for the green down here somewhere, very desaturated and kind of dark. And for this one, I'm going to get a small, use the same brush, but what it is that the mountain has trees as it comes down, and I can always, first I'm using layer 7. Let me give it more strength, but very small. And looking at the photo, I could see that it works all the way down here like this. So what I'm going to do is first kind of like just look where it's going to be going with the covering of the trees and so on, and in the foreground I mean, and then just work it like that. The trick to the Bob Ross paintings, or what gives them a kind of like a trick to it, obviously, is the fact that, let me go down a little bit more, that there's that mist that he creates between layers. Control Z. I don't like the top one there. And I was just trying to get more busyness, but because the texture is so small, so big, I guess, even though I make the brush small, it doesn't really grab the texture. I can do that. What I can do is go to the smear, make sure my brush is affecting the alpha, and then use this, and then just smear the heck out of it, and then come back and draw over it again, just to create that underlying idea that there's a bunch of trees there, or green stuff growing on that mountain. All right, now I'm going to go back to the draw, and likewise. Now, it's the underlying layer, this one right here, I believe. I can always check, because I set myself a couple of, this is a lot of work went into just setting properties that would change the opacities. So that's all that is, but I'm just changing the opacity of the layers as they are there. So on that one, I'm going to go and do a multiply with that dark color right there. If you grab it from the screen, you're going to grab whatever's there. So I just went to the dark color, and then it's in the bottom layer, right? So like I was saying earlier, is you can spend a lot of time on this, but me, Control Z. Oh, I'm doing Control Save. Z, Q, save all images, just to save, make sure I don't have a crash. The whole point of this is not to spend too much time. The reason there's no multiplication happening here is because there's no actual drawing there. So I'm going to go to actually mix, and then see if I can just Control Z. And then just try to get stuff that's going to look interesting through the trees there. I'm going to just get that color right there, darken it very slightly, and do the same. Okay, so obviously that can be worked to no end. Control save. Now that I have that, I'm going to go back into the layer 3. And I can look at this here and then just appreciate it. I'm going to then just put some clouds in layer 3 then. For that, I'm just going to go to the very same palette knife there, brush that I have, which is really just a texture. It is a flat line that is a texture on a flat line that's also being compounded with this texture mask. And the texture mask is the if I could show it, it's just I can't. I can. I just I gotta look it up. Which one is it? Is this one right here? So let me save the file first before I start messing this, because I don't want to misassociate these. For example, this one's called texture, and it's a fake user. So under texture, the fake user, that's all it is. It's a Blender original noise basis and so on and so forth. So I basically just mess with stuff that would just give me something as a mask that changes as you're bringing the brush down. That's it. So I forgot what this one was supposed to be. See, because it changes this one. I don't know why, and I have no idea how to change this, but maybe here. You choose one of these right here, but I just changed the line here, right? Which is, here it is, horizontal line. Nope, not that one. Your palette knife. That's the one it was. Okay, there it is. We're back. Beep, 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 beep. Same. Control C. So, I'm going to use a palette knife then, brush that I have set up here, that now it's going to use, I'm going to mix with the white, just plain white, bring down the opacity a little bit, and then see what it does here. Control Z. That's because it was sideways. So it's not quite working the way I expected, so I'm going to go then into the draw, rather into the, I'm going to use this one then for now. It's just, I just call it this round brush because that's what Control Z. Bob Ross calls these his brushes, right? And basically just he puts, I want to make it look like there's clouds that are being pushed out of the, as the wind blows, you blow in these clouds like that. So it's obviously really, really strong. Now I'm going to go to the smear, and in the smear, I basically took the same settings for that palette knife, but I turned it into a smear brush. And I just start smearing the heck out of it, going this way. Now the computer's obviously going to have to work through all this because it's a lot of information going in there, I imagine, for the computer. I don't want to get rid of all of the little stipply stuff that's there. And I'll show you why here in a minute. Right now I'm just smearing against the alpha, and the blue is showing up on the background, right? All right. Now this can be worked again to no end to give you these clouds, right? So now I'm going to go into the draw. And no, I'm just going to stay in the smearing options, and I have another brush. It's basically just a bunch of dabs. And this is what fluffs them up. It's also pressure sensitive, and I can always change. So I'm going very lightly here. And all it's doing is just dabbing around. There. More. Now the thing about these fluffy clouds, I'm going to keep them like this because I just want it like this, is that they're just white fluffy clouds. To do real clouds, you have to consider the amount of density of the clouds and how, which way it's blowing and so on, the wind, and so there's different colors than just blue and white. That's what I'm saying. You got different lights. The clouds themselves have particles in them that reflect other kinds of light too, so just keep that in mind. But for me, for here, I'm just going to do simple blue clouds. What I may even have is, in some cases, because I just went on the side strokes like that, I may even have some of the gray coming through from the initial. So I already went too much right here, so too bad. It's what it is, and you keep going. And you keep going. That's what it is. So you keep going. So you can see sometimes it grabs them, sometimes it doesn't. That's because it's just on a random scatter. The brush itself is on a random scatter of where the dabs will hit. So there's that. I didn't want to destroy all the little dots because they get scattered around. And now I'm going to go back to this one, but I'm going to bring it down a lot. And then just, this is going to be the fluff that's going to, according to me, is going to make it look like the wind is pushing it this way. So I think this Blender 292 now has a function for actually rotating the canvas. For Grease Pencil, the Grease Pencil team, I think I wanted that. I haven't explored to see if there's a possibility for this. For me, what I just do is I just rotate the object. But, so there we go. Likewise, the wind is blowing in this way. A lot of wind. You got a little hiker up there. Ah, it's too windy. He's going up that chain. This rock actually has a chain that people have shown me photos. I've never been up it because I was too weak and tired to hike up to that. Well, the one time that I went, and now I understand it. You have to actually schedule, and they have like a backlog. I was talking to somebody saying that. A friend was telling me that they have a backlog, and you just can't. And that's like if you take a trail. There's a trail that goes around the back of the dome there. And you can actually walk up it, but you get to a point where they've actually, pounded in posts and chains for people to hang on because it gets a little, little dicey. It gets a little scary, I guess. And so I never got to experience that. Yeah, my friend was telling me that they actually, some people actually leave gloves because the chain, I'm not sure if it's a chain or a cable. It's just so that you can grab onto the cable effectively without splintering yourself with metal shards. All right, I'm going to leave it like that. That's as far as I'm going to go, but it's not a perfect sky, of course not. Okay, so the wind is blowing this way and it's going that. One of the things that I think I would like just to go with this, and I can always come back and change and add more to the mountain to work with the trees, but I'm going to move on to the trees. But before doing that, I'm going to go to the blue layer here, and I'm going to go into the draw, and I have an eraser. I'm going to go for what I call the soft eraser, but it's just basically erasing alpha. I don't know if color has anything to do with it. I just noticed it has the wrong color because sometimes I'll forget. I'll choose the eraser and I'll be changing colors. But I don't want to get rid of this blue here. Maybe I do. So basically it's just, I'm at the blue layer. And I'm just erasing some of that because the gray is going to show through on the blue sky. And I want that. I want that blue sky to go into a very very carefully there. Now on that same blue one, I can also go and draw, just to help those clouds out a little bit. I can draw using this one here, this brush here, very, very lightly. Just different color indications there. Like that. It's just so that the sky is not perfect. There. Maybe even bring in some white here because that's too gray down there. Alright, Q, save all images, Control save. Alright, so now the picture here goes into, I'm going to start with the trees. I'm going to show you. So I'm going to start with these background trees here. And those are pines. The thing that I've done previously, and I'm not sure they're going to fit, they're going to work. Well, we'll see right now. So what I think that I've done is set myself up with some quote-unquote special brushes, I call them. And they're basically brushes for trees. I think it's this one, special tree, right? I think it's this one, but I won't know until, because I'm not, there it is. They're pine, supposed to be pine trees, right? So they're about that. I don't know why it comes up over here when I do the angle. So let's see how this works real quick. A little familiarity there I'm trying to get. So it's saturated and it's pretty dark, but I'm going to bring it down to unsaturated and dark to start, right? That's the way that Bob Ross usually works it. And we're going to go, if I go back to my annotations, we're going to go about from here to about here, and we're just going to scatter some trees in there, right? So let me turn off the annotations. Well, before I do that, let me just draw a couple of them here. So that's giving me the idea of where they go. Let me turn that off now. So what this is I just, and oh, you know what? I forgot. I'm going to go here. So what this is, and I'm going to start the player. It's a template or a mask that the reason I'm playing the player is because I have 5 different one of them that I drew, and they're very small in size. I think they're 300 by 300 DPI. I can't remember. No, it's 512 by 512. So they're very small in size, but they're meant to basically, you know, create this. Now I'm going to go, I can tell by what I was doing that they're not very dark, right? They weren't very dark. So there I added the ones that are in the background, therefore they're not that prominent. Now I'm going to add very carefully the ones that are supposedly in the foreground. Maybe back out a little bit. And you know what? I didn't pay attention to what layer I was working on. I'm working on the layer 02. And so I'm noticing then that what I'm seeing, it actually works, but what I'm doing is I was working on layer 02, which is hiding right behind the mountain. It actually looks pretty good. I wasn't intending to do that. I am going to leave them. This is not my intention, by the way. My intention was to work on layer 8, But here's what I'm going to do. Because it's in layer 2, it's going to get covered up down here. What I'm going to do is erase some of this. I can stop the player now because I'm not doing the trees. That way it looks like it's the bushes in the background, and then I come back and I put the bushes here in the foreground. My mistake. My mistake. Draw, and I want to erase. Do I want to erase or just smear it down? Maybe I can just smear it down and it'll work. The smearing down, let's see what it does. Smear. it just adds more of that layer underneath that I'm going to be covering up and working with. So maybe it'll show some of that. That's why I just decided to smear these down. Which is also one of the Bob Ross tricks, is that he's painting, he brings the sky color down in that in the foreground when he's doing that, and then just smears it. Right? Let me make this. This is the dents of the forest in there, so I'll just do that right there. Okay, now come to layer 8, go back to draw, and now put some of these nice trees, right? Which one was it? I think it was this one. Come back in, and then start putting the actual ones. Start the player, Control Z. That's just for variety. All right. The thing about these is that it's obviously just a very flat color. That doesn't really work, right? So I'm going to have to, you can see the trunks themselves are also a green color, which doesn't work at all. It doesn't work at all. And you can see that it's all really dark back there. So I'm going to go back to layer 02 where I started drawing that. I'm going to go with this brush right here, choose that color, actually come darker. And then come in with that background color, just kind of smear it down, but I'm drawing actually. Right, somewhat right. All right. It'll make sense here in a minute. All right, now I'm going back to layer 8. What I'm going to do on those trees is first save everything before it crashes. Now what I'm going to do is use my, what I call this is the quote-unquote the fem brush, according to me. It's going to be this color, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to saturate it somewhat and then come a little bit towards the yellow and see what that does. Okay, I didn't pay attention to the angle. Maybe that one stroke. This one's also operating on a scatter. I'm going to rotate it underneath. And then just pretend that there is some Control Z. It starts looking too repetitive in some cases, right? So you really kind of, this is the thing about the computer then, you really kind of have to just zoom in. And for me right now, it's just work with it. So it takes longer. It just, you can't, like when you see the Bob Ross video, he's really fast with it, right? But it just takes longer. You just, for me, it takes longer. Otherwise, it looks really repetitive, and so you just have to fix it, right? That one's way back in the background there, so you only see the very tippy tops. Get some light. And I think the scatter is based on the pressure sensitivity. So I'm going to change the pressure sensitivity here, and the scatter itself, I think, is based on pressure sensitivity. So it scatters more. Maybe that can help. So now always just pull out to appreciate it. So it looks like it's got some trees. It looks a little repetitive right here, but I'm going to keep going. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to multiply. So, okay. The strength and the pressure sensitivity. So it should be darkening some of these that you see right here. I can see it happening right there. So just giving texture, a little bit more, you know, of an indication that these trees are actually way back there in the darkness. It's a painting, so it's not going to be perfect. If I can pull this off in an hour, I don't think I have more than an hour now. Recording is 50 minutes. So I know I won't be pulling it off in an hour. I'm going to give tops 2 hours myself. Give myself 2 hours, I think. But you need the darkness there in order for the other ones to show up, right? So I just came down on the pressure and then put some more of this stipple here, and there. This got really dark because I put a lot of pressure on it. But now you just very carefully, for me, I'm just going to very carefully go like that. And then zoom out. And then, of course, it's not the centerpiece. Centerpiece is supposed to be the mountain there. So I'm just going to move on and then come back and touch anything up later if I feel that it's, right, it's needs some more work. So in the photo, you can be seeing that you got some smaller bushes that get kind of like in the way. You can see that the light, I'm not sure if it's even showing here. But, wrong one. It's not live. Not live. I clicked the wrong button. This is temporary. Oh, wrong one either. So you got some little bushes that kind of cover some of the, not cover, but they're in the foreground for the back ones. And then you also have, you have like the edge of where the forest starts, let's say, or whatever. So I'm getting close there, but I have some of these trunks that still come up. So the best and easy way for me to do it is just to put some bushes here that will cover that up, and move on from there, because the creek itself still has to come, from there. The creek itself is all of this, and I think I already overstepped what I drew for the creek. Not quite. So, for example, this tree is in the water supposedly, right? But this is our world. As Bob Ross used to say, this is your world. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to go back to layer 2. I'm going to try to help this out, expedite it a little bit. So a lot of foliage over here. And so what I want is basically to reproduce some of this, but not with so much highlight and detail and stuff. Basically just try to get the idea of a dense forest going in this direction. Oop, almost dropped it. So back over here. Going back to layer 2, I have the brush there. Nope, I have the wrong brush. I have the you can see some of the artifacts or effects of the alpha there working. You can barely see it. I'm not sure if it can be seen. That's because this layer on top, the mountain layer, which is where where it comes and works with this, just doesn't seem to work very well. I'm going to very lightly get some of that. I don't care for detail here and here. That's going to show through when I'm done. But if it really needs more work, then I'll add a little work. But right now, there's supposed to be the mist back there, which I'm kind of dulling out a little bit. And it's almost dark, so I'm going to go here. So I already started with the dark. Now I'm going to go and then just give it a very basic greenish color. That is supposed to just be the mixing and the muddying of color in the background there. All right. Now these I think for me, I can see that those trunks are green. So when I'm done, I'm going to have to come back and some of these trunks turn them into the appropriate color very carefully. All right, back to layer number 9 then. I'm just going to layer it to layer number 9. Q, save all images, Control save. I'm just wondering right now, because I gave it more sky. In the photo you can see that there's not a whole lot of sky, but I gave it a little bit more sky because I wanted this to be more of a center point. The creek will have to be more not as seen here, so it'll have to basically switch back and come back sooner in the distance that is here. And the distance that is here is a lot less than the distance that is here. Not a lot, but some. So I'll just work with that. All right, in layer 9, what I'm going to start doing is drawing what would be the bank or the shrubs here that are going to cover the background for that one. And then go back to layer 2 or layer 1 even, and then start drawing the water. So for this, I'm going to go to which would be the best one I'm thinking right now? Probably this one right here. And I'm going to choose maybe that color right there. Bring it into the yellow a little bit more, saturate it a little bit more, and see what it does. So just from looking at that, I can darken that later, and then here. All right, I'm going to go back to layer 2, which has all of this dark green stuff in there, and I'm just going to darken it and then just add some of that. That's underneath, so if I add some in here, it's not a problem. A lot of this is being made up. Obviously, I said at the beginning, I'm not doing a faithful reproduction of that. I'm just, doing there. So anything to give it the impression that these trees actually are not floating anywhere, right? Because the creek, I have that tree in there. Rather than erasing that tree, I'm just going to leave it. It works. The creek itself is going to come around like this. So I'm going to have some of that color in there. Add some more going back that way. That's probably too much over there. I want that mist back there, so very slowly, very subtly doing some of that. All right, Q, save all images, Control save. What do I need now? Now, I don't want to work too much on stuff that I'm going to cover. That's what I'm focusing on. So, well, maybe some more over here, right? In our world, controls. I didn't do that's fine. I was going to do an undo, but I forgot to get back this color. Just to go there. Q, save all images. Control save. I locked the doors. It's daytime right now and it's getting hot. so that's the unfortunate parts. Okay, I'm doing this. All right, I'm gonna leave that layer 9 like that because I can always go back and work this just to give it, you know, depth and stuff. What I'm gonna do is then go into another layer, layer 10, and now here I'm going to find my other supposed special brush, and it's going to be this one, I think. Yes, it's this one. So in order for this to work, meaning it's cycling, it's a sequence of images that are different, I have to be in this window because I think the UI here is what's refreshing, making it refresh. Otherwise, if I were to not be in this window and just be in the texture painting tools, it will not work. But there's a series of brushes, of bushes that are like that. Let me make sure they're in the right orientation. And I'm going to use some of those there just to put the bushes that are these right here. There's some pines, small pines. I'm going to ignore that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put bushes working their way back that way. Likewise, there's a bush here that covers this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some bushes over here so that they're just in the background of whatever I put here. I'm holding them here against the drawing, but here. All right. So let's see how this works. Now I should be in layer 10. That's correct. Make sure that this is going to make it work. And so start with these. I think that works for the color. Let's see what does. Oh, there you go. Nice. Actually, since it's daytime, you know, I believe that everybody needs to walk away from their paintings and then come back because we get so, you know, consumed sometimes by the paintings that actually, here's what I need to do. I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to bank that color by going over here, not here, but here, and just putting it there. And I'm going to change it. If there were a way to get these colors from here, that would be cool. You don't have to come over here or hit this, because I could always hit N and then scroll down and then look at my color palette and then just leave my color palette here and then close N. So whenever I have to, I don't have to scroll down. I'll just hit the N. But if there were a way to get it up here that I don't know about, because I don't know it, maybe right now, maybe somewhere in here, I don't know. That'd be cool. All right. All right. It's still going. It's an hour and 30 minutes. Where was I? I was going to hit here so that it'll update. But what I was going to do is I was going to make it darker. Darker to start. It's on a scatter, so you can see them updating over here. And so it's just, that's just to make it right. That's just to make it, you know, have certain interesting shapes, right? And the scatter of the brush there. So by making it dark, I can now go back and make it this color, right? Now that was the nice color that I liked. And again, this is like the Bob Ross technique, right? It's just adding those ones that work, that count. Now back there, I'm gonna take those and make them darker a little bit. Not so much. Only the ones that are here. But the ones over here, remember, they are in through the foliage and in the darkness of the forest. Likewise over here, these are through the darkness of the forest. So maybe just one right here. Little bush, lonely bush. They're repetitive right here, but I don't think that's going to be noticeable. All right. So back over here, I'm going to go back to that underlying layer. And going back to the palette brush there, palette knife, I'm going to choose, you can use S, I think it gives you the color, right? But it gives you the color of the layer that you're working on. So if you really want it, you got to use the color picker and get it right there. So this is what I'm going to use to make the shadows. But everything there is in shadow because the sun is 0. I basically just rotated the view. Like I said, these are just planes in 3D that I'm working and painting on. So a little desaturated for these. They're kind of like in the foreground in my image here, and I got to look. Here's what I can do. I'm going to do this window, new window. And what I'm going to do is put the new window in my other monitor and look at it in rendered view and look at it more of a far away kind of condition, because I've just learned that you really have to be zoomed out sometimes to be able to appreciate how much contrast, how your composition is going to work, all these kinds of things. So you really have to push back, and usually when you're painting you just walk back, but when you're doing this on the computer, you just have to keep that in mind and then just move back out by zooming out. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting it in another monitor. Not only that, the other monitor has a different color, transform, you can call them, right? They call them Blender color transforms. So what I see that works here on this tablet might not work on the other one. And what I see is that I overdid these a little bit, right? I overdid these a little bit, these trees right here. So what I'm going to do, and I don't want to draw anymore. I drew on them. I'm going to go back and go to my, make sure it's that one. I got to name them specifically. What I did is I preference them with special so I can just search for them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply and bring down the strength. That doesn't draw more on them, but it should. I am in layer 9. That's why I just did a mess in layer 9. I don't know what I did. Control Z. Bring it down a lot more. So they're a little too on the dark side. So it's not really working because I'm using that color, but what I can do is multiply it with a very light, darker color. Go all the way, and then try to get the brush the same size. Oh, come on. So I can see that it does give it the contrast that I kind of want. I can go back and do the other one. But once you do one layer that has a lot of contrast, then the other one without that contrast does kind of doesn't work. So I would have to go and make the contrast on these other ones. So I'm going to try to stick with what already has happened over here on this layer right here. so I don't want to. I'm going to go as far as back as it goes. In the undo, save the images, control save, and then just go over here. Oh, almost white. All the strength. I want all the strength because I want the mask to work fully and give me those textures. So there. There we go. What I'm going to have to do then is go into, for example, just to fix this real quick, Q save, control save. It was in the second layer, I believe, where I had some trees behind the other trees. And there, I am going to use that one, do the player there, and it's on mix, but I'm going to do the same technique, bring it up all the way over here, and then do the multiply. And so I should be able to start seeing some darkness come through on the back. Yep. The trees themselves are kind of small. So I don't want to paint too much over that mist area. That's why I'm zooming in. And there. I'm just making it darker there. All right, it looks now super dark. We'll see when the image is finished. You can always use some manipulation. I can go back and turn it off. Tone it down, I mean. All right, but again, it's all part of the same technique. It's just add the darkness first, right? So that you can mix, and if you're doing it with the brushes, you want to do that first. Then when you mix the other paint, it mixes on the canvas. We have the benefit with this digital medium not to have to do that, meaning going back. The problem with that is that sometimes you just want to get to a finish point. And it's better, in my opinion, this is my opinion, not saying about it, sometimes I think it's better to be able to do something over and over and over and over and over and over again. And from there, obviously get to a point where you can obviously be experimental with it, but also tackle things. I think the quality is going to improve just because you've done it over and over and over again. I'm not sure if that made any sense, but basically repetition and working, then you can get to a point where you can improve in terms of the quality versus spending a lot of time on one and then saying, okay, there it is, masterpiece. It's like, move on. If it failed, if the people online are laughing at you, so what? Just move on to the next one. I'm going to move up one layer, even though layer 10, I think has, I can start, in this case, I would have to go over here. I don't have to go over here. For example, I can do it here. When I hit layer 10, I can see in that little window what it is. So it's the bushes. It's just that I can't really tell because it's just a little thumbnail, and the thumbnail has no white in the background. I don't know how to make it so that it does have some white in the background. Then I can actually see what it is. But because it has the checker pattern there, it's hard for me to see. So those are the bushes. This is the one that has these. This is the one that has the land, right? The moss, you can say, whatever it is that's down there. And what I'm going to do then is go back and start painting in over that one. On that one, a little bit more of the moss. Going back to draw. The palette knife there. And I'm just going to pick the color, nice color there, and then just start going back and drawing more moss. This is underneath the trees, so it should be fine. I can always multiply in there a little bit for the shadows. But now go back to the mix and then just start drawing. The size of the brush changes because of the pressure sensitivity. So even though I have it full size, I can go very, very small pressure and it keeps this small brush. That's why I'm going back and forth. So right now I'm just trying to create the condition where you have, as seen in the photo here, just some grass, or I'm calling it moss, but some grass or whatever, and then just move this way. There's going to be very prominent trees here, that's why. I'm trying to see where they're going to land. And I am on the same layer. I'm trying to see why it is not drawing. Because I'm smearing. I have no idea how I got there. But there it is. I must have pushed the space bar without noticing. Who knows how much I end up smearing back there, but that's fine. It looks fine to me. Control Z. A little much in terms of there. That gives you more an idea that you got shadows casting this way. All right. Back over here, I'm going to go draw or mix and then just keep going at it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come out like this and then erase the shape of that little bank that comes out this way. All right. So maybe this is not the best brush to be using for this, but so be it. Let me see, get some more of this kind of like dirt color, because once it gets closer you start seeing more of the dirt color. Here this picture is so old that I can't really tell what this is. I think it's just a bush in the way. But you can see some of the sand over here in the little, bank there at the river. So I want that. And whatever mixes with the, whatever mixes with the gray underneath will be fine. So what I'm going to do is kind of bring the brush down and see how it works, so I can just put more pressure. erase. I'm just going to go like that. Control Z. Maybe I'll go to my little cube here. It's just a cube, that's all it is. But I'm going to go erase alpha. Control Z. I got too much at the top one there, so I'm going to bring it down. Even it's going to have like little notches into that bank there with a square corner, but I'll smooth it out here in a minute. So I think if I looked at the photo, I need a place where there's going to be a tree here. So this actually goes over like this. So go back to this one, mix, and I need this dirt color here. I'm moving stuff around over here. Kind of covered up a lot of what I did right now, but I'll go back and get some of that back. It actually should be a little more this way. I'm just smearing it a little bit. I didn't have all the strength up, so just to break it up a little bit. There. Now, with the draw here, again, it's erasing the alpha. I'm just going to break it up like that. There. So I'm going to have room there for the one tree that sticks up here and then some other trees there in the background. Let me see. So a few trees here that come and basically take up the foreground here, going into that direction there. Maybe a little bit more paint. More paint going this way. The trees have to take up all the way to here, so that's why I'm doing that. And I'm pretending that there's a bank right there. I'm moving this. Sometimes it happens. I think it's just having to do with the tablet. But I just moved that. I just moved something in there. Don't know. Yeah, so the soil looks a little bland, Let's see how it's going to look with the water in there now. But yeah, I still need some more in here. I don't know why it's... I'm going to see how it looks with more saturated. The thing about it is when you get to the water bank, so a couple of bright spots here and there, but when you get to the water, it should be darker. I'm going to go multiply, see what that does with that same color. Control Z, bring it down. Let me just go here. All right. Because I have the pressure, the strength really low, I have to go a lot of times. All right, so let's do some more over here then. I'm going to go to the mask. I'm trying to figure out where my mask went, because my mask should be showing, should be red, and it should be stenciled, and it should be somewhere near. It's all the sky, and I don't understand why I'm not seeing it. So I'm pretty sure I have it. So see, there it is. The mask is still showing, but for whatever reason, now it's no longer showing. In other words, it doesn't show up here. Yeah, I'm wondering why now. It was showing earlier when I was working on this earlier, so I'm curious if something happened that I didn't pay attention. So masking, it has the image, stencil is on, and it has, so I can draw anywhere down here. I'm going to do a little test. I'm going to go to layer 12, and in layer 12, I'm going to just take the draw brush, and no, and yes. So the mask is working, but now no longer showing, and I think I know why it's no longer showing. I inadvertently turned that off, I think. Control Z. There. So, interesting thing I just found out then is that if you turn off this, it turns off the mask, and there must be an option somewhere in here. Texture paint mask opacity. Oh, this is great. I don't need this at all anymore. So this is great now. I can still use it for other stuff though, but didn't even notice that. You learn something new every day. So if you get rid of the annotations, you got your mask up there. I don't want the mask there anymore. Control save. Although I could always reuse it, right? So I'm going to save it. I'm going to image save as. It's going to go to the same folder where I'm saving stuff. I'm going to save it mask sky. Save as image. What did I save it at? Image save as. Okay, save. That's fine. So, all right. Basically just saving that. If I ever need it, I'll just open it and reuse it. Control save. It's packed. So the image is packed in here. So by doing that image save as, just I'm going over this because some people might get confused. It's going to think that if I were to go and open this up, that even though it's called mask up here, it's mask sky over here, and it's going to think it's that one, right? If I wanted to ensure that I don't ever overwrite it, even though I'm packing the images, I can go image save as again, and then just save it as mask. Save as. Now it's packed, it's saved, it's mask, and I'm going to change it now, and it's going to overwrite here the packed image, but the other one is saved. Even though because it's packed, it's not writing the other one until I ever decide to do so. Go into the masks, and I think it's control takes them away. So, although I didn't need to do that, I mean, but I did. So this is going to be for the water down here. Yeah, so the water supposedly goes somewhere over there, or maybe it's just a little pond, little lake that's left over, right? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's going to be right in the foreground, so I want to make sure it looks okay there. All right. Supposedly that goes off into the stream comes around there, so Control save. Now this is, I'm not going to paint anything on here, so now I'm going to go back to the draw and choose this one, maybe just choose that color, and I'm going to go down to this is the layer that has all of that. I can't paint over it, so I'm going to go to the layer right underneath. What do I have that? In that layer I have layer 8 is the pines. How is layer 8 the pines? I'm kind of trying to figure out what stuff is what right now. This is one of the drawbacks. Yep, layer 8 is the pine trees. And then these are the bushes on top. So I'm going to go back to layer 2. Layer 2 is the one that you can see right here. It's got the sky and all this other stuff in here. Looks like a painting in and of itself, right? Control save. So go back to layer 2 here, and here I'm just going to use that one, mix, and choose maybe a color right in there. Maybe darken it a little bit. That's the little sand right at the beach of the creek. So all right, there we go. Now we can go back into the layer 1. Actually, we can do it in layer 2. We can invert the mask and then just paint the color in here, the water in here. So that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to go to the mask and then hit, well, first I want to make sure I'm using it, and there, since I hit it, even though it was blacked out, it was inverted. So I'm going to keep working on layer 2 here. Q. And so for that, I need. I'm not going to do it on layer 2, I'm going to do it on layer 1. There's a reason for that. I think that I'm going to use layer 2 then, just to bring in what would appear to be reflections. So back to this one, mix, and then just go to the color. Now the color of the stream in this picture, it looks a little, blue is obviously going to be too saturated. It just is. So if I look at this picture here, if I were to try to reproduce something like that, it would be more like a greenish, darker greenish with some bright highlights for the water. And it's obviously a combination of the color of the creek bed and the sky and everything else. But I'm going to start off with blue. Right around there, and then see where it goes. All right, so it still has the gray. I'm not going all in with the pressure. So that's a quick way just to turn it off and see it. Obviously, if I look at it and I leave it like that, I could say, yeah, here's my artwork, and it works, right? Supposedly. But I think maybe I do want to go with a greenish color, right? And turn that back on so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to mix this color in here and see what it does. Okay, turn that off and see how it looks. I don't have to turn it back on and off. I can just do it. The streaks sideways are going to help me, I think. I'm going to go to layer 2, and then using the mix, the same brush, I'm going to take the color of the mountain there and then just work it down. I could take an image of the mountain, invert it, and shove it in as a layer underneath. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is also then take the color. I'm going to take one of these more of the dull colors there for the trees. And I'm going to go strong on that one. I want the trees to be seen. I'm going to smear, make sure I don't have the alpha. I'll use that brush, that's fine. what it's doing is it's picking stuff from underneath the mask, which is fine. Now just a regular old smear. All right. I'll call that more or less good. To save. Control save. So I gotta put in some more of these trees because it's already 1:41. So I got 15 minutes to put in the trees and finish. Whoa, can I do that? I don't think so. I'm gonna go to layer 11. Or rather, I'm still working on little things for the water. Then what I'm gonna do for the water is go and make it a little darker. So that was on layer 1 that I was doing the water. Go back to the draw, make it a little darker, and it's fine. It was pressure sensitive, so that's why it wasn't coming a lot. But I'm going to add some more there. It's got to be darker on the banks on purpose because that's where it's most shallow. Right? That's where the soil looks wet also, right? All right. I'm asking if somebody's going to answer, yeah, you're right. You're right, Blender Pretender. Probably, I don't know how many people will be watching up to this point, but you're right. Makes sense, total sense. Okay, now I'm going to do multiply and overlay rather. Overlay, and just shove that in there. This is going to deviate obviously from the picture, deviates. But what I want is just some indications of the highlights that are the ripples of the water as it comes around, right? I'm going to use the same kind of brush to smear. So if I were really invested in trying to do this correctly, I mean to do this to be more realistic or whatever, I would pay more attention, right? But to the colors and to all these things, but right now I think obviously the bank's not working there, so they a little interesting thing that the bank there is not quite working. So what can I do to fix this? Because I just did it sideways, right? So I really need to draw and paint it such a way that it works. I think I'm just going to go back to this one and erase some of this very carefully. The problem is that when I erase it, it's because I used the mask as well to draw the water. It's going to, it's not going to be correct. It's not going to be right. Not going to be right. Not at all. Maybe mix it a little bit. Maybe make a mess here. I'm going to go to draw. Mix. and then pick that color. I'm on that layer that has the bank, and I'm just going to draw. Right into it with the watercolor, the color of the water. Might be a while before I get that to work. So there's another way. There's another way that I don't want to explore. But yes, the other way is to go back to layer 1 and go back to this one right here. Make sure that the stencil layer is off. You know, I never noticed that my axis was on. I'm drawing underneath the layer, and the layer that's underneath. And I just want to break up this bank right here. So now I'm going to go back to the bank here. And I'm going to go to this one right here, but instead I'm going to do erase alpha. See if it works. It's not really working. So the other one would be, I need something that will just give me a kind of rough edges. Oh, Control Z. Erase the alpha. The brush itself has stabilization. I don't want that. I am on the bank. Oh. I don't have the stencil layer on, so right now I should be able to erase that, and it's not erasing, so I got to figure out why. All right. I mean, I do have an easy fix for this, but it's not where I want to go with it. But because I still want to keep it in layers. But for example, for the sake of finishing this, here's what I can do. Control save. I can run a test print and go to the compositor. So Alt Home. So here's where I have so far. It's printing it to those resolutions, so I can go and save it as image. First I want to make sure I have the viewer image, save as, and I'm just going to call it temp. Temporary. It's just a temporary file, right? I'm going to go image open. That very same temporary file is open. I'm going to go to the painter here, and for the sake of just going forward, I know that I painted in 12, I think 13. I'm going to start with layer 13. And go options, apply camera image, and it's called temp. it's a test also to see if it works, because there was a version of Blender where it wouldn't really work. So what I've done is I've basically merged them all down to that one layer on 13. So this is the painting as it, everything layered up. And because I'm trying to complete this here in a few more minutes, I'm going to go back into the painter there on 13. So now here's where I can fix some of this right here. If I just go to the smear, maybe here, it will smear some of these. It'll just break up the very obvious circles. So I think maybe I can always try to brainstorm if there's a brush that I can create. Where I can draw sideways and then just try to give these edges, these images. That you don't see a circle. Right? Maybe, maybe not. So that can go on for a while, right? As long as, until you're happy with it. Nowadays, you can do a painting like this by just copying using Photoshop and just copying actual landscape images and then bringing them in, manipulating the image, and you got it. It's a landscape. Q, save all images, save. So I mean, at this point in time, this doesn't work right here, right? It doesn't, because I still need to add some of the stuff in the foreground that makes it look like there's no longer trees. It doesn't work also over here because I didn't work onto the mountains. In terms of a composition, I mean, it still needs the trees that cover up and basically frame that mountain in the back. All right, so I'm gonna push through and get it done, even though at this point it's already 2 hours into this, and who knows how long it's gonna take more, but I can push through here. So if I go on to the next layer here, I'll have to go into the draw brush and go and get my special pine brush. Come on. Over here. And just from looking at the picture, I'm going to add a few in the background here that are kind of big, so hopefully the computer doesn't crash. Because the brush size based on the view is going to be a little tough. Right now the computer's calculating. I think it should be calculating because it's on multiply mix, and obviously I didn't even have the right color. I'm going to choose one of these colors right here. I'm going to put another one. I'm going to start playing it, making sure that there's one. Maybe move it up a little bit. What's happening is, Control Z, is that I have too much of a angle randomness. I'm going to change it down to 1. There's 1. There. That's good enough right there. And then over here, there's another one right there. And I'm going to touch those up a little bit. and then put the one that's in the foreground. So then I have a really big one here in the foreground, and then some bushes here in the foreground as well. I'm just thinking there's another one that should be going in here, but for now, let me go get this brush right here. I think everything's good to go. Now what I'm going to do is go to the, try to get a bark color right there, kind of dark, not too saturated. A little on the darker side. You don't see any of that, but you see some of these. Probably should have done the bark color first, right? Just to try to give the indication that they're in shadow over here. The green side, I guess you could say they have moss on them. I don't know. There we go. I used those, they came on because of the scatter, they came in the direction that I wanted to. Because of time, I didn't want to, but I really should have drawn the trunks the way I want them, is what I should have done. But now because of time, I just brought those in, and now I have to just give it a indication there that we have. I'm using multiply here instead of mix, but that's fine. I've just noticed that. Sometimes it's a little hard for me to see clearly. Like I said, if you stare too much at something, you just, I believe you get, what do you call it? The term is accustomed to the color, but there's another term. I forgot what the term was. You build a tolerance to certain things, and so I think that if you stare too much at the screen, you Control Z, Shift F. You stare too much at the screen, you get to the point where you're not really appreciative of the colors that are that are being done. That's fine. That one can have a gash. Big old gash there on that tree. Can draw people's attention to it. It's like, dude, why? Why is that tree almost broken? All right. This is going to be a little gap in here. I can go back and cover that up or just leave it. Doesn't matter. It's not pivotal, but so what I need to do is go into the draw, now back to the round brush that I was talking about, and just trying to bring some of those out. It's just it gets a little too faint over here because of the fall off from the brush. So I'm just gonna fill that in. I can hear my computer just going crazy. There. All right. So just looking at the images, it's a little light, right, on that. So I'm just going to go to the multiply and bring it down. Control Z. All the way down. And just try to give some of these the idea that they do fall in shadow. Maybe those that stick out there. If they're sticking out, that means they get light. All right, so there's that. I'm going to go back to this layer here and then use this one here. And I'm going to multiply by about this much. And then very carefully start adding some shadows here. Maybe a little bit more. Doesn't all have to be in shadow. some more here. 2, save all images, Control save. What's next? Next. What do I need to do next? Just the one big tree that goes in here. These are already framing that mountain pretty well, I think. But I do need that one tree that goes in there. And for that one, what I'm going to do is just draw it by hand. So for that, I think it's this one right here. That's fine. And I'm going to go with, like, try to do like a bark color, a dark bark color. Dark bark color is what I need. I could use some touch-up work here around the trunks, by the way. They're not done. I could do that, but again, I'm trying to not go much beyond the 2 hours here. And so for that tree, you have one right here, but I'm going to put this one up like this and then maybe put some branches out like this. So here we go. Control Z. I thought the radius was working on that. Control Z. Yeah, it is. Control Z. There it is. All right. So same kind of deal. This one's going to have some branches that go off this way. And I'm going to add another one here too. Because I didn't like the fact that that doesn't get covered up as much as this. This is not pine trees, by the way. These are going to be just regular old whatever else I like to do. Trees. This is layer 15. So back to this one. I want to mix. I'm going to pick that one. And no, I want to multiply and just bring it down like that. So I'm going to zoom in here and then just work the shadow side on this tree. This trunk got a little thick up here, but that's fine. I'm at a stand-up desk, so I'm already getting to the point where I've been standing for 2 hours. I'm not used to it so much. So I'm at a point where I want to sit down. Even when I used to do a painting, I used to have a little stool. There. Maybe bring it down, so make it a little faster. I forgot the twigs and branches on this one. This one's a small one. All right, this is all gnarled up. Back to this. So I'm just guessing at sides that have shadow versus other sides that don't. Right, now I'm going to go into overlay. Control Z. A little too much. So bring it down about half. There. Just to look like it has light hitting it, right? There, maybe through the branches you get some light that comes through. Through the leaves. There we go. All right, so now we got that one. Covering that up. I don't like these over here. I would put more work onto them because they ended up being... So in other words, what I'm saying again is that I would have painted these the way I did these over here, but too bad. Now I get to do this. I can leave the empty trunks, by the way, and maybe they'll work, maybe they won't. Just the trunks here themselves. I'm going to go one layer over. So that I'm not drawing on the trunks if I have to go back and do some work on them. One layer over, and then go get this brush over here and make it a darker color. And then a little repetitive there, huh? The trunk continues up, so I'm just going to keep drawing up. So now just add the bushes. And they go here. Man, Bob Ross does it so much faster, right? One thing I'm going to do also is since I'm already doing this, is just add some stuff in there. Some stuff. There and there. There we go. All right, now I'm just going to bring it up in lightness. Both saturation and lightness. And just sprinkle some here and there. Maybe bring it over in the yellow a little bit more. All right, now I'm going to go into the multiply. Let's see how much. that's just my attempt to try to make it look like it's mixing colors. That's something that you just I can't get, not with Blender. I'm sure that other programs do allow you to do that. So when you're doing the brush thing, right, you're mixing colors with the actual dab of the brush. And of course I can't get that, right? So I'm going to give a little multiply here as well before I go into the mix. Let me mix some shrubs in here. There we go. A little bit of shrubs in here, maybe some fallen leaves or branches or whatever. And I can go over here and maybe just also just give you the indication that they also have stuff growing around them. All right, I'm gonna call this one good. It's just, that's what it is. There's more work that can be done to it, but the trunks, usually when I draw them, I got a little accelerated here, paying close attention. Obviously trunks don't grow that high before they start putting leaves out, so you know, well, oh well, it'd be interesting to put a leaf coming down. I was going to draw rocks and stuff in here. It all takes more time. Let me go Q, save all images, Control save, and then just do a F12. Obviously this can take longer and longer and longer and longer, and I can spend more and more time and try to do this to be more correct. But I really would like to get to the point where I can just use, just do half an hour's worth of work, the way Bob Ross used to do it. So there's the finished product right there. And I can leave it with that, I think. Again, yeah, I would like to get to a point where I'm faster with this, but the water didn't work out for me as well. And I'd like to get to a point where I can maybe be faster with the program here and be able to get more of a nicer looking, more realistic stream like the ones that we see in the photo that I was using as reference. So there's my Bob Ross attempt at painting a, you know, a viewpoint half dome that actually exists somewhere, but you know, you only get there if you go hike to that location at Yosemite Park. Okay, well, with that, thank you for watching, and goodbye.